Welcome back into the Tide Talk podcast. Stacey Blackwood, joined as always by Jake Thomas. Jake, what's happening, brother?
Man, just trying to stay warm and dry. It's a little rainy here, and in our part of Alabama, I don't know where everybody else is at. I know some places getting a bunch of snow right now, so crazy weather right now. But it is January here, So
Yeah, yeah, just cold and wet
mhm.
here today in our neck of the woods. But we're back. We want to bring a quick episode. There's been a lot of moving parts and pieces around Tuscaloosa over the past few days. Of course, players are announcing whether they're going to transfer, whether they're going to enter the NFL draft, or whether or not they're going to return to school or not. So there's been a lot of moving parts and pieces, and we're going to be here today to talk a little bit about some of those guys that have decided to come back to Alabama, maybe some of those that surprised us, and who we think could kind of have the biggest impact for the Tide this season. But real quick, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and jump in the comment section and answer today's questions. Out of the returning players that have announced they're coming back for a final season in Tuscaloosa, who do you think has the biggest impact for this team in 2022? And also, which player surprised you the most that they decided to come back for one more season? All right, Jake. So that's really what we're going to be diving into today. Let's just start with Jake. Pick a guy that it just really surprised you when you saw that they were going to decide to come back to Alabama.
To me, it was Jordan Battle. I mean, what we talked all year, he was pretty much one of the most consistent guys we had on the defense, and he just continued getting better, especially the last 6, 7 games of the season. And I mean, he probably worked his way up to at least a second round grade. So I thought he may go, but man, I'm glad to have him back though, because I mean, we talked before we got on here how his impact next year. He could be a mid round, first round guy. So you know, in hindsight, it's probably best for him to come back because if he has a great year next year, he's going to be a first rounder.
Yeah, I think so too. We talked pre-recording that if he works himself up into the mid first round, he's made himself another $5 to $10 million
Mhm.
probably in bonus money and stuff like that if by coming back for another season, which I'm expecting Battle to have a big senior season. Joining him there in the secondary returning is DeMarco Hellams, Jake, a guy
Yeah.
that come on strong after being injured the first half of the season, was really playing good football towards the end of this season. So excited to have both of those guys back. I'm with you on Jordan Battle. The next guy, I'm really excited to have Henry To'oTo'o back, Jake.
Yes.
Him being the field general on defense, leading that defensive side of the football in the front seven, especially, is going to be huge for Alabama next year. There's still a lot of uncertainty about Christian Harris, but it looks like he's probably going to turn pro
Hmm.
with a late first round, early second round, uh, you know, stock right now in the NFL draft. So, but having Henry To'oTo'o back is going to be huge for this Alabama defense. And another guy on defense that's really big, DJ Dale, a guy who's a run stuffing interior defensive lineman with a lot of experience and just a really good football player. So there's a lot of guys coming back that uh, it's just really huge for Alabama moving forward in that defense. And if you think about, all those guys coming back, DeMarco Hellams, Jordan Battle, Henry To'oTo'o, DJ Dale, Byron Young announced he's coming back.
Yeah.
Justin Aboy will be back. And then you think about the two bookends and Dallas Turner and Will Anderson Jr. And you're like, my goodness, that this 2022 defense, I mean, they ought to be elite. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. We talked about last season's defense probably could be one of the best ones under Saban since probably the 2016 defense, but this 2022 defense, I mean, especially with the emergence this year of Dallas Turner, we kind of already knew what Will Anderson brought to the
Hmm.
table, but with his emergence on the opposite side, Will Anderson, and then Henry To'oTo'o to me just got better as the season progressed as well.
Right.
And a lot of early on, him and Christian were getting out of place a little bit, but they honed it in, and he and To'oTo'o that is became a great, like you said, field general. And getting your play your signal caller back and the defensive side of the ball is huge. You don't
Right.
have to get somebody else to do, learn that and do that for you next year. So that, like you said, that 1A and 1B to me is Jordan Battle and Henry To'oTo'o for sure.
Absolutely, and you look at with Christian Harris most likely moving on to the NFL, that makes Henry To'oTo'o returning that much more important because
Right.
if you're having to replace both those guys, that would be a massive loss for Alabama because then you're looking at really young players like Deontay Lawson and Demoy Kennedy and because Shane Lee is transferred out, so there would have been a lot of moving pieces there at the middle linebacker position. So with Henry To'oTo'o coming back that's just going to be big for this Alabama defense. So really excited about all those players that are coming back on the defensive side of the ball. Let's move to the offensive side just for a couple minutes. Like I mentioned, this is just going to be a quick little episode to talk about some of these guys that are staying and some that are moving on the offensive side of the ball, Jake, Slade Bolden decides to enter the NFL draft. That's been a hot topic on Twitter and social media over the last couple of days. What is your take on the Slade Bolden decision?
If he's got some maybe scouts or his, an agent telling him that maybe his potential is he's already maxed out his potential and where he's at now is where he gets drafted at and where he, is where he's going to be in his career. Fourth, fifth round, maybe.
Right.
That why do you stay another year if you've already maxed out your potential and don't have a chance to move up? And then looking at that wide receiver room that Alabama brings back, who knows if he's going to be on the field next year? I mean, he was a consistent guy for us at wide receiver, but I think it's best for him just to go ahead and move on because that wide receiver room is deep and loaded for next season.
Right, that's kind of how I look at it. I believe that Slade is who he is. I
Hmm.
mean, he's a round 3 to round 5 top player,
Yeah.
whether he come back to Alabama or not. So he's really maxed out his potential, like you said, and I'm willing to bet that scouts have told him that the coaching staff has told him that he is who he is,
Hmm.
and so it's really not worth the risk of coming back and possibly losing some snaps because of younger, more talented players, or taking the chance of being injured there at Alabama. So I'm with you
Yep.
there. I think Slade probably made the best decision because he really is who he is at this point in time. Now, a
Yep.
guy that's coming back that's going to be huge for this offense that not really a lot of people are talking about is tight end Cameron Latou. Of
Yeah.
course, Jaleel Billingsley has moved on. He entered the transfer portal. It seemed like as soon as the final whistle blew in the national championship game, he was in the portal. But
Yep.
Cameron Latou has announced he's coming back. He was the most consistent out of the two players, so it's great to have him back, and it's a chance for him and Bryce Young to work together for another offseason and to get better. And we saw when Latou was playing well, the Alabama offense was playing better. So Latou is going to be an integral part for this offense in 2022. So I think him coming back is going to be huge for Bryce Young in this offense.
Yeah, and a big thing about Latu returning is since JMO and Mechie have both declared,
Right.
he's the next guy who has the most receptions on the team, and he's only got like I think they said like 200 or in his
No,
career
no,
or
he
maybe
don't
less
have
than
near
that.
that. Yeah, he
Yeah,
don't have no.
he may have it's less than that. So I mean, just having his experience and having somebody kind of like a security blanket per se, because yeah, we are going to have a lot of inexperienced wide receivers. They're going to be good and they're going to be great and they're going to be talented. You just got to get them going and get some experience under their belt. So having the two back will help in that regard. That on a big third down play, Bryce Young knows he has somebody who can make a play for him.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Latou is Alabama's returning leading receiver for next year, and he only has 26 career receptions for
Oh
410
wow,
yards, but he does have 8
yeah,
touchdowns. Of course, you got to remember this is really his first year seeing the field on the offensive side of the ball because he come to Alabama as a defensive player, so that's kind of understandable. But yeah, there's a lot of key pieces, for Bryce Young and his targets that are gone away. Jamison Williams enters the draft. John Mechie enters the draft. Javon Baker hits the portal. Slade Bolden enters the draft. There's a lot of targets that are now gone from Alabama and Bryce Young. So having Latou come back is going to be big, and we'll kind of see how the younger guys develop out wide. We saw them come in the championship game. They had their ups, they had their downs, and but now it's time for those guys to step up. And we'll just kind of see how that plays out during spring practice, which is only about 8 weeks away
that's
now
crazy.
before they start spring practice. So
No.
really looking forward to that. But that's really, unless you have anything just major to add, Jake, that's really going to wrap up, some of the
Uh,
players we've been talking about that are returning to Alabama. But go ahead.
I just want to real quickly say, even though he was kind of a pain on Twitter, I think getting a Jai Hall back and him being an integral part moving forward, I think it's going to be huge because we saw a little bit. I know he missed a couple of big passes, but I mean that kid's oozing with talent,
Yep.
and he is going to be a playmaker next year and the coming years at Alabama. So I think if we just get his head right, and it looks like he's got his head to where it's now a team focus because he's already said I'm coming back. We get that the whole year, he's going to be outstanding.
Yeah, I think a Jai Hall grew up in between the time that Jamison Williams went down with the injury and the end of that national championship game. I think he grew up right before our
Yeah,
eyes as far as maturity level, playing experience, and I think you're going to see a different type of a Jai Hall next season. And like I said, that starts in spring practice. So we're
yep,
gonna we're gonna find out a lot about these young players in spring practice. And don't forget, we have a lot of young, talented freshmen that are coming in as well. So
yeah.
there's gonna be a lot of interesting pieces to look at and positions to look at in spring practice and then during the summer. So really excited about what's
Mhm.
coming up for Alabama, and can't wait for spring ball to get here so we can start talking about some of those younger players.
Absolutely, man. It's it was kind of a bummer, losing the championship game, but there's still a lot to look forward to in the future because Saban, of course, is still there, and all this talent coming in. We're gonna be fine, and the sky's not falling, so we're
That's
we're
right.
we're fine. We're good.
That's right. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode of the Tide Talk podcast. For Stacey Blackwood and Jake Thomas,